She was 38 weeks pregnant, just days away from welcoming her first child into the world, a moment that should have been filled with joy, anticipation, and the quiet excitement of a life about to begin. But within hours of making a decision, one that should have been hers alone, she was gone. Her life was cut short in a way that no one saw coming, or at least that's what they wanted everyone to believe. In the days leading up to her death, there were signs, small, fleeting moments that, at the time, seemed like nothing more than ordinary concerns. A lingering glance, a hesitant answer, a sudden change in tone, details that, in hindsight, painted a picture far more disturbing than anyone could have imagined. Why did she have to die? Who would want her dead? And the question that still haunts those who remember her, was this truly the act of a desperate man? Or something much, much worse? Stay with me as we uncover the terrifying truth behind the murder of a woman who refused to make the choice others demanded of her, and paid the ultimate price. She was 38 weeks pregnant. She had already chosen a name. She had packed a hospital bag, tiny clothes, newborn diapers, a car seat waiting by the door. A life about to begin. She should have been counting down the days. Instead, someone else was. Jessica Stevens had made a choice, one she had every right to make. But that choice would set off a chain of events leading to something no one could have expected. Or maybe someone did. In just a few hours, everything would change. The nursery she had decorated would never be used. The baby she was ready to meet would never hear her voice. And Jessica, she would never get the chance to hold her child. What happened in those final hours? And why was the person she trusted the most the very last one to see her alive? Jessica Stevens was 27 years old, a bright, ambitious woman with her whole life ahead of her. She had dreams, plans, and, above all, excitement for the future. She was expecting her first child, a baby girl, due in just 2 weeks. A baby she wanted more than anything. But Jessica's pregnancy wasn't just a source of joy, it was a point of tension. A decision had been made, one that not everyone agreed with. She had refused to terminate her pregnancy, and that choice would define the rest of her short life. On the evening of October 12th, Jessica was seen alive for the last time. Hours later, she was gone, but the way she died, the questions surrounding her final moments, they weren't just tragic, they were chilling. This isn't just a case of loss, it's a story of control, fear, and the terrifying reality of what happens when one person decides who gets to live and who does not. Before we go any further, I want to hear your thoughts. What do you think happened to Jessica Stevens? Was it a crime of passion? A carefully planned act? Or is there more to this story than anyone realizes? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want more real chilling true crime stories like this one, make sure to hit that like button. It helps more people uncover the truth behind these cases. And don't forget to subscribe, because some stories are too important to be forgotten, and this one is just getting started. Jessica Stevens was 27 years old. She had a life, a career, and a future. And in just 2 weeks, she would become a mother. She had spent months preparing. The nursery was ready, a soft pink blanket folded neatly in the crib, tiny socks still pinned together from the store, a shelf full of books she had imagined reading to her baby late at night. Everything was waiting, but something else was waiting too, something no one saw coming, or maybe someone did. Jessica had met Mark Peterson 3 years earlier. He was confident and charismatic, the kind of man who always knew what to say and how to say it. People liked him. Jessica did too. At first, things were perfect. Romantic weekend trips, whispered I love yous under city lights, late-night conversations that stretched into the morning. She had never felt so sure of anything in her life. But certainty can be an illusion. In the beginning, Mark had been supportive. At least, that's how it seemed. When Jessica told him she was pregnant, he smiled, held her hand. I told her they'd figure it out together. But as the weeks passed, something changed. His smile became forced, his words short, clipped. Jessica noticed the way he stared at her belly, not with excitement, but something else. A hesitation, a discomfort. And then one night he asked the question, "Are you sure this is the right time?" Jessica had laughed it off at first. Of course she was sure. The baby was coming. They would be a family. But Mark didn't laugh. He just sat there, staring, waiting. She brushed it aside, told herself it was just nerves. First-time fatherhood was overwhelming after all. But deep down, a tiny seed of doubt had been planted. And then he asked again, "You don't have to do this, you know. There are other options." Jessica felt her stomach tighten, the way he said it, the way his voice stayed low, calm, too calm. It wasn't a suggestion, it was something else, but she wouldn't entertain the thought. The baby was hers. It wasn't up for discussion. She told Mark that, and in that moment, something in his expression shifted. Just for a second. A flicker of something she couldn't quite name. But then it was gone, replaced by a reassuring smile and an arm around her shoulders. He told her he understood, that it was her decision, and for a while she believed him. But over the next few weeks, Jessica started noticing things. Small, insignificant things, or at least that's what she told herself. Mark would disappear for hours without explanation. His phone, once always in sight, was now turned face down. Conversations felt different. He wasn't distant exactly, but something was missing. That warmth, that ease, it had been replaced by something else, something quieter. He wasn't angry, he wasn't confrontational, but he wasn't the same. And then the questions started. Not direct, not forceful, but little things. "Have you thought about what this will mean for us? Do you really think we're ready? What if things don't work out?" Jessica reassured him over and over again. But she was starting to feel it too, the weight of something unspoken. It pressed against her, wrapped around her like a fog. She told herself she was overthinking. Mark was just nervous. That's all it was. And yet, the way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching, the way he barely touched her belly when she guided his hand over their baby's kicks, the way he avoided saying father or dad. It was there, hiding beneath the surface. She just didn't know what it meant yet. October 11th, 10:47 p.m. Neighbors later reported hearing voices. Jessica's sharper than usual, a little frantic, and Mark's lower, controlled. A door slammed, and then silence. No one called the police. No one thought they needed to. Jessica's best friend, Lauren, had spoken to her earlier that evening. Jessica had mentioned Mark was acting off, that they had argued, that she was exhausted, that she would call in the morning. That call never came. The next morning, Mark called the police. His voice was steady, unshaken. "Jessica's gone. She left in the middle of the night." Gone? At 38 weeks pregnant? In the middle of the night? Without her phone, her purse, or her car? Without telling anyone? Mark's explanation was simple. They had argued. She was upset. She left. But there was one problem with his story. Jessica Stevens was 38 weeks pregnant. Wherever she went, she didn't go alone. Jessica Stevens never made it to the morning. Her phone sat untouched on the nightstand. The clothes she had laid out for the next day remained folded neatly on the chair. The baby's hospital bag was still zipped, waiting by the door. And yet, she was gone. Mark Peterson was the first to call the police. She left, he told them, in the middle of the night, after their argument. No note, no explanation. Just gone. At first, detectives weren't sure what to think. Women leave. Sometimes they need space. But Jessica wasn't just any woman. She was 38 weeks pregnant. She was days away from giving birth. And yet, according to Mark, she had walked out, without her phone, without her car, without even grabbing a jacket, on foot, in the middle of the night. Something didn't add up. Police began searching. Calls were made. Friends, family. No one had heard from her. No cabs had picked her up. No security cameras showed her leaving. It was as if she had disappeared into thin air. Then, a break in the case. A neighbor, just 3 houses down, had something to say. I heard something that night. It wasn't an argument, it was something else. A noise, a loud thud, and then nothing. Just minutes after Jessica was supposedly gone. Investigators turned back to Mark. He had remained calm and cooperative, too cooperative. He offered theories. Maybe she was overwhelmed, maybe she had second thoughts, maybe she needed time alone. He told them he had gone to bed after the argument, assuming she would return. But there was one problem. Mark never called Jessica. Not once. Not when he woke up. Not when she didn't return. Not even when hours turned into an entire day. A man whose pregnant girlfriend had vanished in the night hadn't tried to reach her. Instead, he had waited, and the police wanted to know why. The backyard was quiet, undisturbed. The grass is still damp from the morning dew. Officers scanned the area, a garden hose coiled neatly, a shovel leaning against the fence, and then a patch of soil. It was subtle, almost unnoticeable, but to an experienced eye it was the only thing out of place. They didn't have to dig far. Jessica Stevens was there, less than 20 feet from the home she had shared with the man who claimed to love her, the man who had sworn he was ready to be a father, the man who had insisted she left. Jessica had not simply disappeared. She had not walked away. She had not run. She had been silenced. The cause of death was suffocation, no defensive wounds, no signs of a struggle, which meant one thing. She had trusted the person who killed her. The truth was far more horrifying than anyone imagined. Jessica's refusal to abort had not just caused an argument. It had sealed her fate. Mark Peterson had made a choice, and it wasn't to be a father. He had researched methods, quiet ones that wouldn't leave a trace, ones that wouldn't hurt too much. And when Jessica refused to end the pregnancy, he took matters into his own hands. He didn't just take her life, he took their child's too. The perfect family, the perfect life, a future that was supposed to be just beginning, ended before it ever had the chance to start. Jessica Stevens never got the chance to tell her story. Her voice was taken, her future was erased. But now the question remains, was this always his plan? Was this murder premeditated, cold, calculated, inevitable? Or was there something else? A moment of desperation. A decision made in the dark, one he thought he could hide? What do you think? Drop your theories in the comments below. If stories like this keep you up at night, if you find yourself searching for answers long after the case has closed, then make sure you don't miss what's next. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because this is just one of many stories where the truth is far more terrifying than fiction.